Seems like we just talked to you, so not exactly sure what to start with. But have you had a chance to look at App State much at this point, and what do you think of what they have this year?
Yeah, I've had a chance to look at them a little bit. Obviously, they had played Marshall before we did last week, and so as you get into conference play and you're locking in on your next opponent, you kind of keep an eye on the one that's going to be coming up after that. And so, traditional App State team under Coach Kearns, incredibly physical, playing two bigs, kind of bully ball type of basketball, elite defensive team. They're going to do a great job of, really making you work and have to earn every single bucket. They're not going to beat themselves. And so a little bit more of a traditional type of a game as opposed to some of them that we've seen as of late with a lot of switching, small ball lineups, different changing defenses consistently throughout a game, which a lot of Sunbelt teams do. And so in some ways, maybe a more comfortable matchup for us in terms of, tempo and pickup point and ball pressure and things like that, but it doesn't mean it's going to be any easier. Just going to kind of reflect a little bit more of our style of play in our practices. But great guard play. Again, they're terrific defensively, and we've got to do a great job of being very physical on both sides of the ball if you want to get anything accomplished.
Yeah, and you hit on that kind of like quirk of the schedule, and maybe it's the geography, but that U App Marshall. Let's throw ODU in the mix, like all play each other here in a short period of time. Like, how much does that kind of change, like, the preparation and knowing that they've also seen, like, you on film of other teams that they're looking at, and you haven't played but probably know each other pretty well from that perspective?
Yeah, I don't know that it really changes anything from a preparation standpoint. It probably just makes it a little bit more efficient, that as you're, I haven't gone back and watched, App versus Marshall just yet. I need to do that so that I can obviously, put my goggles on and really lock in on App, but I do have a good understanding of that game and, how each team played each other. And it does kind of help you a little bit, obviously, because we've played Marshall. We've got a better feeling for what some of their strengths are and how they match up against us. And then you compare that when you've got, common opponents against each other. But it doesn't really change it. If anything, it kind of, it can help you. And the quick turnaround just kind of increase the efficiency that you're able to, watch some film and find commonalities between the four opponents that you mentioned there.
Just going back to Saturday, kind of felt like that offensive duo of McBride, Gabe together, being able to work, especially two low post guys at times. What have you liked about maybe that duo of what they can be able to provide and maybe how they can continue building on that?
We need it. I kind of joked that it seems like we struggle to get, four of our top five playing well at the same time. Even if we could get, 3.5 playing really well, like they're capable of at the same time, I think we'd really start to peak and kind of show what our potential is. But those guys are certainly included in that mix. Not every team has the ability to play inside with a couple of different guys, and then certainly if one of those has the ability to step out and give you the versatility from the shooting on the perimeter and driving the ball and being a mismatch problem that obviously Justin does, that's an added edge. But so much credit to those guys, especially in that particular game, to say, hey, we weren't playing that poorly. We were just weren't finishing, and a lot of it had to do with those two guys specifically. And they heard that message at halftime, and in the second half, they go perfect from the field and making those adjustments. And it certainly gives you something that everyone has to prepare for. It gives you an opportunity to embrace your physicality and get some high percentage shots, get into the free throw line, and then ultimately that opens up everything else for your shooters and makes life a little bit easier for them.
And I know throughout that second half, there was I know Preston Fowler was out there quite a bit. What have you liked from his development to be able to allow him to be able to still be in those kind of environments to maybe continue getting that expanded role?
It is so hard to play in college basketball right now as a true freshman, and we've got two of those guys that are in our top 7, and it just says a lot about them and their talent level and their maturity, even as young guys. I was pulling my own hair out when Preston had that turnover late in the second half there when we were making a run. I think maybe we had cut it to 6, and just kind of a lack of urgency, awareness, throws the ball, just tips it back to a guy, and they score a quick layup. And I thought in that moment, I said, man, the old saying, the greatest thing about freshmen is they become sophomores sometimes, right? But, they're learning, and they're learning on the fly, and you cannot replace experience. We say that in recruiting all the time. All these players that, maybe we recruit them and we're going up against a Power Four, conference, and we say, well, listen, what's important to you? Because we can give you a ton of examples of guys that went to the wrong school early on and they never played, and they are just playing. They spend their entire career playing catch up because they never get the minutes. And you can't replace the minutes. You can't replace the experience of being on the court in Division I games, and that's what these two guys are getting right now, and they're continuing to get better and better. The ceiling is extremely high, for Preston, and I think as our offensive efficiency, we get a little bit crisper, passing the ball a little bit better, he's going to be the beneficiary of that, because obviously he's a big-time shooter, but he's only going to be his shooting is going to be dependent on other guys on the court, and so we've got to do a better job of, increasing our efficiency and our passing and our precision and those types of things that, put him in positions to where he can really showcase what he can do.
Obviously, as this season has progressed, Justin McBride is on everybody's top of their scout. How has he adjusted to teams playing him different? He forced it a little bit in the two games this week, but settled into the second half on Saturday. Do you like how he's been approaching all the different things that he's seeing now, being the number one option?
Absolutely. That kind of happens a little bit every year. We had that happen with Bryce, right? He jumped off on the page last year, and then he hit a little bit of a slump because he quickly became the top of everybody's scouting report. And so that's always an adjustment for young players, or even players that have never had this type of role, like Justin, for example. And how do you combat it? You bring them in, you watch film. If you were watching 10 minutes of film with them, with their individual coach, now it becomes 20, right? If you're breaking down different things, and he's really matured. I mean, he's finding ways to keep himself out of defensive rotations and things like that, with his communication and his positioning, constantly improving those things so that he can stay on the court and stay out of foul trouble. And then picking his spots, right? Obviously we love the aggressive version of him, and that's how he started the game the other night. He gets a rebound, pushes it 94 feet in transition, gets plays through contact and finishes one, and then he kind of shied away from some of that and then settled for some threes. And so it's just getting him in that attacking mindset early on, and then building the rest of the game off of that, because he is such a mismatch problem. But to his credit, he's really, starting to dive in and realize, hey, I've got to be great with my details. I've got to be great with the nuances of, whatever it is that we're running, and have an understanding of, what the other team is doing defensively. There's just a huge difference for him and the rest of our guys. We always say every team in the country runs plays, but good teams execute offense. And what goes into that is an understanding of what we're trying to get accomplished. Some screens you slip, some you set, the angles, all those types of things. And he's really diving into that, and that's what's going to keep a guy like him, although he's at the top of a scouting report, at the top of his efficiency and his production level as well.
You've struggled from three in conference play. Do you like the shots you're getting?
I do. Yeah, I think we're getting some pretty good looks. I think it's a confidence thing, right? And days like today are really big for us to be able to do that, really lock in on our shooting, and really focus on our passing, getting guys on time, on target, being shot ready, giving them confidence, talking to each other. But we're a better shooting team than what we've shown, and so you don't want to hit the panic button and say, hey, we don't want to shoot anymore. But at the same time, I do like the last two games, 3 games, how we just said, hey, we're not going to settle, right? If we're not shooting the ball incredibly well right now, let's drive the ball, let's post the ball, let's get to the line. And that's where we've seen things really change for us over the last 3 games, is just finding new ways to win, and some of which is attacking the paint, not just with our 2 big guys that we mentioned, but with everybody.
We spoke in here last week a little bit about defense. You and I talked about it on pregame on Saturday, but it seems like your guys feel pretty comfortable now with what you guys are doing defensively. Do you feel comfortable with how they're able to execute everything you're doing right now?
Without question, and it's a process of throughout the season. I think we had some We had some theories as to some things that we wanted to be able to do defensively with this team just based on our personnel that would maybe serve them a little bit better. But as you get going, you kind of realize, hey, we're probably doing ourselves a disservice trying to maybe keep this matchup or eliminate some switching here. And so it's about figuring out what fits your team. And I think we're doing a significantly better job of just keeping things consistent across the board as to what we're switching, what our pickup point looks like. We've done a masterful job since Christmas of just being better in our gaps, keeping everybody in front. And the guys are seeing the benefits of, hey, if you're going to win that shot quality battle, it gives you an opportunity to win. And if you do that, then it gives you a chance to win the battle of the boards, and then everything's kind of built off of that. And so they're really understanding that a good bit, but I think some of it's been simplifying what we've done and finding commonalities amongst the couple different defenses that we're playing and then different opponents and what they're trying to run.
Kind of pivoting off that, do you feel like the defense is getting off to, we talk about fast starts, but generally speaking, you're talking about offense when you speak of that area, but do you feel like your defense is getting off to a fast start?
I do, yeah. I think we're doing a nice job. I thought the Marshall game the other day, we were just poor coverages, and it's only an issue if you got guys who are confused, or if you're looking at it as a staff and you say, man, I have no idea how we're giving that up. And I think we've found ourselves in a good amount of the games, the last 3 games most specifically, that when we do give those first half runs up, they're pretty easy to identify where they came from, and the guys have an understanding of that. And so it's, hey, this is on us. This is an easy fix. This is what we worked on. Let's go back to executing it at the rate that we did before the game started, and you'll watch things change. And that's happened in each of the last 3 games. And so our guys are really having an understanding and a confidence with that. And our defensive numbers have reflected that, because I think we're really moving in the right direction of becoming a better defensive team.
When you had to concentrate on getting the ball in the paint, particularly with the big guys, you refocus the concentration maybe, but do you feel like you're getting enough of still inside-outside play on doing that and getting the kick-out passes to find the open? And one, just to kind of think about how you finding shots for Cliff Davis at times, for example, because he didn't get many shots up, against Old Dominion, for example.
He didn't, and a lot of that's got to do, they're switching. I think people are really keying in on Cliff as of late. I thought coming off the Arkansas State game, where he obviously had one of his best performances of the year, he was a huge focal point for Marshall. They played him tight. They did a great job, and it's hard to kind of get him loose for the actions as a shooter when there's a tons of switching and things like that, because you can't really impose your will and create advantages with your screening for a guy like him who needs that. But what comes with that is you get some mismatches and you get some opportunities to exploit them inside. And so I think if that can be your advantage and playing inside, then certainly opens up everything else for those other guys. Our post spacing the other day was really quite poor, to be honest with you. I was thankful that we did score the ball in the rate that we did, but the couple times that they threw a couple extra bodies at us, and that we had some post turnovers, those were self-inflicted because our spacing was extremely poor, and it's something that we got to be able to address here today, certainly if we're going to be able to throw the ball into those guys and expect them to be able to produce or make the right play when they see extra bodies thrown at them in the paint.
When are you deciding to insert Christian? How are you working him in and out of the bench? Obviously, when he gets into foul, he gets fouls pretty quickly,
yeah.
Which is a problem, obviously.
It is. He's our first big guy off the bench, and some of that's got to do with we want to make sure that we're keeping Gabe fresh. You want to time up some substitution patterns, and we like to go to Gabe offensively when he's fresh, right? If that's the very beginning of the game, or if he's looking pretty fresh and he's got a favorable matchup and we've got an opportunity right before we get him out or when we get him back in. So some of that is dictating, when Christian gets in off the bench. His fouls have been troublesome. Some of his fouls, we always say we're okay with being aggressive on the offensive glass. Those are fouls that you can live with. But he's he's got an opportunity to be such an elite defender because of his versatility, because of his instincts, his ability to go erase mistakes and contest at the rim. But I think oftentimes he's still a freshman and he's out of position. And if we can just get him in position a half second before that, right, then those instincts really take off and he gets an opportunity to be in better position to impact the game defensively and then stay on the court without fouls.
Share with us your history of Eddie Ricks at the free throw line. You go back, with you at Moorhead, he was like 61%, then 71% last year, and shooting at a higher rate this year. How has he developed that part of his game? Because sometimes you get guys that they just never make that part of their game, and he has.
Yeah, it's I wouldn't say it's something that we've specifically dove into. We always feel like Eddie's a good shooter. Especially when he's got his feet set, whether that's shooting the ball from the perimeter and then obviously at the free throw line. I like the rate that he's getting to the free throw line because he's really starting to embrace the level of athleticism that he has, and he was attacking in transition. He was getting the 2 feet off of shot fakes. He's done that the last few games. And we need that, right? We need, if you're not going to have a bunch of, small shifty guards out there kind of stirring the pot and getting paint touches for everybody else, you need your wings to get involved in that. And so he's embracing that role, stampeding some drives, and we can get teams into ball screen coverages and tags instead of just settling for shots. But I do really like what he's given us right now of driving the ball and getting into the paint, and the result of that is obviously getting to the foul line and converting. And a lot of those too coming at the late games when he's going and getting defensive rebounds, because he's done a great job of attacking the offensive glass. That changed the game for us, against ODU, and then finishing possessions, rebounding out of his area, and certainly that's reflective in how he's leading us in rebounds right now.
And when you read the box scores the last few games, Bradley's not been putting a lot of points up in the cylinder. But for the sake of folks that are watching him play right now, what else is he doing for you that's helping to win these ball games?
Yeah, well, he's running our team, right? So, you got guys like Gabe, you got guys like obviously J Mac, who we talk about. Your forwards are only going to be as good as your guard play, right? You could have the greatest bigs in the world in forwards, but if you don't have guards who are running the team, setting the table for those guys, getting everybody organized, then you're never going to see the benefit of it. And so he's doing a lot of that doesn't show up in the stat sheet. Something that we chart daily, and certainly in the games, is shots generated. Okay, so in the game the other night, not sure how many assists Brad had on the official stat sheet, maybe 5 or 6, but he generated 12 assist attempts, right? So he made the right play, threw it to a guy, and he missed a shot. We keep up with that because that is a real stat for us and something that is encouraging. It's alarming if he's only generating 6 assist attempts in a game, right? But he's getting up there in double figures. So we finish some of our paint shots. We make some of those good inside-out threes that we're talking about at the rate that we're capable of. Then you're talking about a guy getting 9-10 assists a game as opposed to 5 or 6. Some of the turnovers, we've got to cut those down. I think it's just it's a usage rate for him. He's never had the ball in his hands quite this much, and a lot of his turnovers are preventable. So we've spent a lot of time watching those with him, drilling them. I got on the court and did a full 30-minute individual workout with him myself the other day of just playing with a little bit more urgency, being great with your details, simple pass catch, and being really good with your setups, so that when you're going against different defenses, that you can kind of exploit those and see what's open at the right time and hit guys on time, on target. But those things don't always come out on the stat sheet, but they're extremely important and they add to your success, and I think he's moving in the right direction with those things.
Anything else? Going back to Eddie a little bit, he's been really efficient here, especially in conference play. His usage rate isn't very high compared to some of the other guys in the starting lineup. And is he somebody who can maybe help you when the offense gets a little stagnant, setting stuff up for him, or is he better kind of like taking advantage of the double team elsewhere or getting in transition and things like that?
A little bit of both. We've got some things that we do want to run for Eddie and to get him a little bit more involved. But a lot of it's just the mentality. I think he benefits really well from, hey, we need you to be the guy who's driving, getting paint touches right here, being in great position on the weak side to go get offensive rebounds. And then we've been leaving points on the board in terms of, we talked about our defense getting better and not rewarding our defense by getting out in transition. And he's a big part of that because obviously he's going and getting 4 or 5 defensive rebounds a game. Those are opportunities where we want him to rebound the ball and push it for 94 feet. And he started to do that a lot more the other day against ODU, and we've got to clean some of that up. But but I like where he's at because he can be the defense to offensive guy for us. He can erase some of our bad possessions as he did late in the game against ODU by just really being aggressive on that offensive glass. And he doesn't have to have the highest usage rate in terms of playing in ball screens or coming in off ball screens and things like that to impact the game. And that's what you got to love about a guy like Eddie, because he can impact the game without calling his number. And I think that's the calling of a really good player.